Hey there, folks. Welcome to the edition of Stranger in a Southern Land. I, of course, am your host, Jake Manning. Today on the program, I speak with John McIntosh. John is one of the interviews that Candace lined me up with. Candace, who's now kind of the unofficial talent coordinator for the Stranger in the Southern Land podcast. I thank you, as always, Candace. You've been hitting nothing but home runs, and John was no different. John, when his synopsis was given to me by Candace, I was intrigued right away. One of the first things that was said to me was that he paid his rent in New York City by being a dungeon master for Dungeons and Dragons. And then also, too, he's, kind of on his way down the path of possibly becoming a professional Magic the Gathering player. Like a player, I think they're called players, I'm not for sure. There's a lot of information on this podcast because I know little to nothing about these worlds, and I am not intimidated by that. I am not, as most people, they just want to say, oh, it's nerd stuff, and they want to forget it. No, I want to know more about it. The fact that I know nothing about these two worlds makes me want to know more about it, and John was just a wealth of knowledge of both the worlds of Dungeons and Dragons and Magic the Gathering and all kinds of, role-playing games and other such things, and just the dynamics of these card games, why they die out, why they're successful. He's very knowledgeable, and I was just very happy to get this information. And, if you don't know nothing about these worlds, don't be afraid. I asked plenty of questions, so I feel like I have a better understanding, and I'm sure you will too after this conversation. So just hang in there and listen all the way through. It's a wonderful conversation with John, so can't thank him enough for sitting down and talking to me, a noob, if you will. Anyways, thank you very much to the Shining Wizards Podcast Network. I can't thank you enough for all your support in making the Cool Kids Table a little bit larger. And make sure you support them and all their other podcasts at shiningwizardsnetwork.com. Also, too, make sure you check out my producer Don's podcast. He's got all kinds of them. He's got another one of my podcasts, How Did This Get Booked, on his network. So make sure you check out Don at dsct.tv. and support him and all his other podcasts, especially other podcasts that I have with him. But anyways, you guys have been doing great as far as supporting some of these live shows, and I've been trying to give you these dates well in advance, plenty of heads up notice, and that's exactly what I'm going to do here again. So anyways, let you know that Saturday, June the 4th, Northeast Wrestling makes its North Carolina debut in Hickory, North Carolina. And as I've said before multiple times, it will be at where the Hickory Crawdads play baseball. And as you remember, the Hickory Crawdads podcast, where I talk with Aaron Cox, in the background of the video portion, you can see a baseball diamond. Well, I will be wrestling on that baseball diamond. And also, Ric Flair and the Hardy Boys will be there. For more tickets about that show, make sure you log on to northeastwrestling.com. Now, Friday, June the 10th, I drive all the way back to Iowa, Clive, Iowa, which is just outside of Des Moines. To be more specific, Sammy Callahan, a former Stranger in the Southern Land podcast guest, will be putting on a show. Many stars will be there. I believe it is ProWrestlingRevolver.com. I still haven't checked that out, but just follow me on Twitter or just Google Pro Wrestling Revolver, Iowa. It'll pop up. It's definitely one of the things that is top on that Google search engine, that is. Anyways, moving on to some more dates and stuff like that. Monday, June the 13th, I will be emceeing for Pete Davidson at the Charlotte Comedy Zone. For more information about that show, make sure you log on to cltcomedyzone.com. And of course, that is Monday, June the 13th. But then that week, that Wednesday, June the 15th, I return to the Laughing Skull Lounge in Atlanta, Georgia. I had a great time at the Laughing Skull Lounge the last time I was there, and I expect no different than this upcoming time going down to Atlanta. It's just fantastic. It's a wonderful room. I'm very appreciative for the opportunity to get to perform at the Laughing Skull Lounge Wednesday, June the 15th. Now, for any changes, for more information about all of those shows, especially probably the correct website address for Pro Wrestling Revolver, make sure you follow me on Twitter at ManScoutManning or on Instagram at ManScoutManning. If you have a question about this podcast, or if you want to become a sponsor of this podcast, make sure you email me at jake@sslshow.com. Or if you want to book me for an upcoming wrestling event, make sure you email me at manscoutmanning@yahoo.com. Anyways, without further ado, let's jump into the wonderful world of Dungeons and Dragons and Magic the Gathering with John McIntosh here on Stranger in a Southern Land. I'm all over the place.
Okay.
I'm very sorry.
It's all good. It's all good.
I'm stumbling and bumbling around. Like it was a long day yesterday. It was 12 hours, so it was just like
of work or travel.
Work. Yeah. So like, and it didn't have to be that long. You know what I'm saying? Things get dropped on you and just
right.
get a little bit over. So
those are the worst when you can tell the whole time you're like, this could be shorter. I could be home. But
well, and it's like you schedule yourself out, and then your boss drops a project on you that takes about 2 hours. So that's kind of where I'm at in my life right now.
Okay.
But I'm in your place right now, John.
Hopefully you can relax a little bit.
Yeah. So I appreciate you bringing me in your home, your domicile.
Right.
Which I like I said, this is very nice, very Spartan-esque, very to the point, very direct. I dig it. Because no lie, as soon as I got into my car this morning, like I was stumbling around my house trying to get everything together. It's like, why do I have so much stuff?
Oh, yeah.
And I was just thinking, it's like, man, I wish I just lived on a couch and paid somebody $200.
Right, and like everything could literally just get packed up and unpacked and do your whole life real quick. Yeah,
it would just be a whole live out of a suitcase and live your whole life. I'm like, man, I would really love to live in those weekly hotels. You know what I'm saying?
Yep. It's pretty neat. I like it. Whenever we move, we try to get rid of like as much stuff as possible, just to kind of keep it going. Because otherwise, you collect stuff.
Yeah. Well, I mean, John, I really was looking forward to this interview. Like, I was actually a little bit excited about this one before I got in the car this morning, because like Candace, who from Robot Johnson, as we were discussing off camera, she's become like the unofficial talent coordinator for the show in a sense, and she lined me up with you. And the sales pitch was professional Magic the Gathering player. Mm-hmm. And like somebody who was a dungeon master and paid his rent in New York.
That's true. I forgot you knew about that part too.
And like I'm so excited about that world. Like, and please don't. When I say that, I was like the prom king and the captain of the football team. That's why I wore my Nerdist shirt to let you know that I'm a friend.
Sweet. All right.
Like, I definitely I'm fascinated by your world. I know little or nothing to do with it whatsoever, but I'm not intimidated by that.
Okay.
And I would love to learn and know as much as possible about that.
Okay.
But let's take a step. Like, what as a young kid, what was like probably the thing you got into that was probably, I guess, of the nerdy, the geeky classification as a kid?
Okay. That's tough. I was a huge jock.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I played football from 9 years old on throughout high school, and then I wrestled the same.
That's okay. So you're a bigger guy. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, and it looks like you've had some muscle mass on you.
Yeah.
before.
So I used to be half of me, and I guess not quite half of me, but yeah, I used to be more athletic, and I did like full sports all the time throughout high school. But I guess I started doing kind of nerd stuff. My uncle, who I also like taught me wrestling when I was growing up, did Dungeons and Dragons, and so he taught me that when I was like, I guess 10. We had a trip up to Connecticut, where my family's from, and for like a Christmas or something, and to pass the time, he like told me about Dungeons and Dragons, and then we got back, and I like bought a copy of the starter book and stuff, and then
what was the sales pitch that sold you on it?
I don't know, like, because we had we had a lot of board games around that time that were like fantasy themed. So you're kind of like running through dungeons and like killing monsters and stuff. He's like, all right, so what if you could like take that board game and you could make it different every time, and you could play with your friends and it wouldn't get stale and it wouldn't be the same thing out of the box every time. And he was kind of like describing how he would play with his friends. I was like, oh my God, that sounds awesome. Mm-hmm. It's like writing a movie like together as a group every time you sit down.
Yeah. So the little bit that I know about Dungeons and Dragons, I know about the Intellivision game of Dungeons and Dragons. Do you remember that at all?
Like the cartoon?
No, the video game.
Oh, okay.
Remember the console Intellivision or Intertelevision or whatever? This was about the time of Atari and stuff like that. They had their own little.
I guess there had to be, but I don't
There
remember.
there was, and that's what I. So when guys are like, oh, I play Dungeons and Dragons, I'm like, oh, you still play that? Like, and it was like that outdated. It was an outdated video console.
Gotcha.
Like it was like Atari and Nintendo far took it over, but it was like about the time of Atari. You know what I'm saying? When Atari was really hot, like Intellivision was, or Intertelevision.
That was the name of the console?
That was the name of the console. It was Intertelevision or whatever. And it had like a square, like almost like a remote, and then a dial, and you'd circle it around. And you just take out the plastic sleeve and slide it in, because it had like a remote control. It had like a number, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and then you just slide in this new plastic thing, and then it would say on the plastic thing, this is to jump, this is to run, this is to whatever, this is to punch, and then you would just push those buttons accordingly.
So instead of like memorizing the configuration of buttons, it would
have it right there for you, because but the thing is, each game you'd have to switch out the little plastic piece.
Right. Okay.
So it'd just be right there.
Yeah, that actually sounds better than for a new player than having to memorize.
Exactly, because it's sitting right there, and then just figure out all that. So, but that's what I know about Dungeons and Dragons and stuff.
Okay.
Like that. So, for somebody who's obviously shows that I have little or no knowledge about it whatsoever, you gave the sales pitch for like. Explain it to me as if I've landed on this planet and I know nothing about it whatsoever.
Oh my god. Okay. Dungeons and Dragons from the most base perspective. So I guess storytelling game would be the best way to describe it.
Okay.
Where you and the other players, one of the players is in charge of playing all the characters in the story who are minor characters, and also the villains, and then the other players are playing the main characters of the story, the people who are making the story move, progressing the story, and so they're able to give their own lines and have their own actions and stuff, and the dungeon master, the other player, is kind of running everything else. So you're kind of making a story together throughout the session, throughout the game. And it's usually a game that takes place over many periods, where you might play weekly, or you might play, monthly. And it would be the same game every time, but the story would be progressing. Things would be happening and changing.
But like how would it be progressing? How would be the story? Is it basically just Game of Thrones, but in real life?
Sure. I mean, it definitely could be. There's like the way Dungeons and Dragons and companies like it make money is by putting out different settings you can play in. So there would be like a Game of Thrones sans copyright setting, kind of, or there could be. I think Game of Thrones actually has its own like version too. But yeah, you could be playing in the Game of Thrones world, or you could be playing in like generic fantasy world, or the base setting is kind of more like the Lord of the Rings world. But there are ones that take place in modern times, where like you'd be like running down the actual street and doing stuff.
Like what type of stuff? Like so like as Dungeon Master, we're going to start the game.
Yeah.
Okay, it's in modern times, and I understand that everybody has like their own little powers and things that they have, and that's assigned by themselves, by the like.
Right. Yeah.
Because to me, like
giant book of rules.
Okay. Yeah, that's the thing. I feel like there should be a giant book of rules, because when you're talking about something that involves imaginations and people's things, like it's like when you would play with like that's the thing when people explain Dungeons and Dragons to me. The thought process that I always lead to is like, how does it not end up like when you were a kid on the playground and you'd be playing like cops and robbers or anything else, and all of a sudden you go, oh, but I'm not really dead. I shot you. No, you didn't. I'm alive now. I have the ability to heal. I'm actually a bad guy. You know what I'm saying? Like, to me, it feels like it just devolves into that. So obviously rules are important.
Right. Rules are super important. Generally, it's like a 300, 400-page book. That's like the base rules, and then they come out with more and more and more. But there's rules about like what dying is like. There's rules about what kind of powers each person has, and like let's say, to simplify it the most, it could be like, all right, everybody picks 10 powers, and you can only pick the powers that go with your class. So if you're a wizard, you only pick wizard powers. So you start with your 10 powers, and then like every game, maybe you get an additional power. But your powers are written down, and kind of like everything you do in the game would be based on those, and then there's dice to be like to see how effective your power is. You might roll your dice, and so if you wanted to be like in the cops and robbers example, you're the cop chasing the robber, and you're like, well, I'm going to use my like chase the robber really good power. And then the dungeon master, the guy who's running it, is like, all right, cool, roll your power, and he rolls it, and he's like, all right, because of what you rolled, this is what happens, or this is what happens. So it kind of like changes up based on what the power says, and it would all be written down in the book, so you can like flip through and figure stuff out. And then if you as the player playing the cop, you'd be like, oh well, that's not actually how it works. And then there's some litigation there, but for the most part, like the dungeon master, the kind of leader of the group, is arbitrating all the rules.
Okay, so he's basically like the judge.
Yeah, basically the judge. Yep.
And in a sense that instead of cross-examinations and other things in a jury, really the jury in the essence is the dice. They decide and you make small little judgments upon every little piece of the case, as opposed to one big judgment at the end.
Right. Yeah. Kind of like constantly happening.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how important is a good dungeon master to a good game of Dungeons and Dragons?
Super important, because not only the judge, because that's important, and being like fair and arbitrating things is important, but probably more important is they also are the writer. So they have to start with you'll be in this place, or they'll like ahead of the game be like writing out all the things that will happen, and all the different scenes might happen, and all the other characters. So every other player is in charge of writing one character, and the dungeon master is in charge of writing hundreds of characters.
Oh, now we say writing and stuff like that, and scenarios and stuff like that. Like, let's use our cops and robbers example, because that's where we're at right now. So, like, you're coming up with outcomes and situations for each one of these players to get in, and creatively, and then they've got their powers, and then they decide how they're going to handle it, and then the roll of the dice basically decides that. Right. And then, of course, there's the litigation, and then you figure that out.
Yeah, so as the dungeon master, but the writing part is you're not only...
There we go.
There we go. Not only are you writing the robbers in this situation and the other cops at the station, you're also probably writing the different cops' wives or children, or parents, or they're generally getting into situations with their extended family, or the guy who sells them guns, or their car, or whatever. Like all these people in this like kind of sprawling world that you're in charge of kind of keeping up with and giving personality.
Okay, so you're coming up with scenarios, you're writing scenarios. Like, you got involved in an officer-related shooting and your partner got shot. How do you now handle this?
Yeah, how are you handling it? What's going on? Where are you going? The coroner said it was actually your fault. Why did they do that, and what kind of stuff is happening?
Now you're actually in a case, and now we're inside of a case. And
yeah. It's like huge, sprawling thing that just keeps like being deeper and deeper, and
Okay, so that's basically the dungeon master's, responsibility.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think I've got a grasp on the game now.
Yeah, grasp on the game.
I've got a whole grasp on this. Now, where were you living at the time? Like, where did you grow up and stuff like that? Like,
grew up in Connecticut.
Okay.
Then I moved down here for high school.
Okay.
Lived in Raleigh, a little outside of Raleigh. Then went to college in Greensboro. And after college, moved to New York, which is where I was at the time. Okay. So I was in New York, like, I guess, 2005, 2009.
Okay. So you're interested in this game, Dungeons and Dragons. Obviously, it's a game you have to play with people in person, I guess. I
with technology now, doesn't necessarily have to be in person. But yeah. I mean, person, I think, is by far superior.
Yeah. It seems like that's the route to go. How did you find those people that were interested in this game? Especially in those early days of you learning about the game and stuff like that. Like,
it's internet was really good for that. Having different communities, obviously people that not obviously, but I guess people that play Dungeons and Dragons tend to also be very internet centric. So like finding those people either online, or they call your local game store.
Yeah,
which is like where you would go to buy the books anyway. So you can kind of like find groups of people there that like, usually the dungeon master is probably the most thankless part, and the one that requires the most work ahead of time, and then the most work during as well. And so it's something fewer people probably want to do, and so it's a lot easier to find 5 people that want to be players in a game than 5 people and a dungeon master wants to run the game.
So the dungeon master is usually, the toughest find of it all. You can find other people because I've seen those comic book stores where you've like, just even in Moxville, I think there was like a group of people like playing and stuff like that. Like, I just wonder like as far as like community, like finding those people, like when did you first start playing? What age?
10.
Okay, so 10. Were there any instances like, well, I'm a 10-year-old kid, I'd like to start playing Dungeons and Dragons, and then you're like playing games against like 36-year-old men? Were there ever instances like?
Yeah, I guess started playing with like friends and family, and then this is gonna go deep, I guess.
No, that's what this is for. Let's get deep.
Dungeons and Dragons is kind of the popular term for like a subsection of many games. One of them is called Vampire the Masquerade.
Okay. And
in that one, that takes place in modern times, you're all pretending to be vampires of the flavor of Interview with the Vampire. And so the first one of those I played in was 100 people big, and it took place at NC State.
Okay.
And so it was like a sprawling. We shut down a whole building every other week, and 100 people rolled in and played this massive game. With has 6 dungeon masters that are kind of like handling different scenes throughout the building.
And eventually, the thought process is that it gets whittled down into like one big scene. Is that how it goes?
Like once a year.
Okay.
Usually, it's just like there's just scenes taking place all over the place, and it goes through the night with stuff to. Oh yeah, it would also take place 8 at night to like 1 in the morning.
Okay.
And it's like just different stuff just happening, and they all the different dungeon masters would be like writing stuff, and they would all kind of know what was happening throughout the building. They'd have like meetings throughout the week to like schedule it all, and then once it started, it would be like kind of free form. And but anyway, so.
But I mean, like, does something like that? Does it form into like one big story against one person and then like the last person standing, or is like a group over here? All of a sudden, we have a storyline that intermixed with these people over here. We need 3 people to go over here, and then is it like that?
Yeah, it's like it'd be like the cops and robbers example, but you're like the whole precinct.
Yeah,
and so everybody
like you're talking about the secondary characters you make up when you're playing with 6 people, but in a situation where you have 100, the secondary players are in another scene where they're the main players, and then they're mixing in together.
Yeah, basically, like everybody could be each other's secondary players. So you could have scenes when it gets that big with no dungeon master at all, where like you have to go invest it. Like the robbers are actual players too, like in different scenes, having their own objectives and stuff.
Yeah, and it's like the robber's brother, he's going through all these struggles here, what his brother's doing. Well, at the meantime, his brother is going through something over in the other room,
totally
and then finally they come together. Okay.
Yeah,
all right.
And it might not even be like, that night. Like it would take place the game would take place over years. And so like you might not even know stuff about each other or like end up finding interconnected stuff.
That's like, to me, that's gotta be like fascinating. Like if you're,
it's pretty wild.
You know what I'm saying? Like especially like let's say you're a writer. You know what I'm saying? Like to me is like someone who is starting to write like sketches and my own stand up and stuff like that, and trying to understand the human experience. Like that sounds fascinating to like understand. Like come up with stories. You know?
No, it's pretty intense. Like there's just so much going on, and you have such a palette of characters. Because basically for every as a storyteller, the dungeon master, for every one character that's a player, you have like at least 10 characters that you're kind of writing for them off screen, stuff that might be happening to them. So to do that for like as the people grow, there's an exponential growth of side characters that you have to kind of keep in your head. Or generally when it gets that big, you got to like keep it all in a character bible.
Yeah. So like. Dungeon Master is extremely, because you gotta be on his stuff.
Yeah, it's gotta be like on it all the time.
It seems like I said, a very thankless job because like people just show up and play and they leave and
and then you're like spending the next week, a couple hours a day or like maybe one day a week with like 12 hours, like writing it all down, getting it all together.
So it's like a 12-hour thing. It's like what's an average amount of time to spend on like just one game that's just gonna be like a one-off or whatever?
I've been told I do it different from a lot of people, but I generally do. So like, let's say we're gonna have like a one-off game where a lot of people would spend like a couple weeks running up to it doing maybe 2 hours. I generally like just sit down and do like a 12 to 16 hour marathon and kind of like knock it all out. But usually you're doing because the 12 to 16 hour ones are the one game that needs that much time is usually a little different because you need to introduce a lot more stuff. Mm-hmm. So it's a lot more time front loaded. I would say all games are a lot more time front loaded for the Dungeon Master, whereas that one game, if it went on to 4 games, it wouldn't necessarily be 4 times 12 hours. Mm-hmm. It might be more like a total of 24 hours.
Okay. I think I follow you and stuff like that. So that now it makes a little more sense when you're talking about just about the hours when it was said that you were you paid your rent by being a dungeon master for people, especially I'm sure in New York, higher population of people, much more. You're going to get a bigger collection of serious,
a lot more collection of people. Also, I was able to, augment it with stuff. Like I might have an acting job that paid for half the rent that month, and then the next 2 months not have one.
Listen, I know it was with pro wrestling. This job's going to pay for the electrical bill. No, it's not going to pay for the house.
Right. I just need to knock these out. Yeah. I also ran a World of Warcraft guild online, and that's like a whole other thing. But you're able to kind of make money in the game and sell it sometimes.
Okay. Well, we'll circle back to World of Warcraft. I know a little bit more about that than I probably do about Dungeons and Dragons.
Good.
But how do you see it as okay, how can I make money on being a dungeon master? Or did you stumble into it? Was it a thought process?
I kind of stumbled into it. I knew I wanted to do it, right? That always seemed super cool. And then there were just so many games in New York that needed someone to do it. Mm-hmm. And so I kind of stumbled into it. And, I had one that I was doing for fun. And then it was I can't. More people would want me to do it. And I'm I can't spend that much time. Mm-hmm. It's a time-intensive thing, so I can't do it. And they're like, oh, okay, well, what if we paid for you? Because the player base generally really wanted to play.
Yeah. Now, when he said that, was that oh, you can get paid for this? Or we're oh, well, yeah, I know some people get paid for it.
No, I was kind of going into the conversation, kind of setting them up to say that.
Oh, so you knew that sometimes dungeon masters do get paid.
It's super rare. It's not a... I guess it's not a thing that is normal at all, but I knew.
I know, that's why I'm sitting down talking to you. I find this fascinating.
I knew that's how it had to go down to go any farther. Uh-huh. So I kind of I guess I didn't invent it. It's something I had heard of before, but I was that's the only way this situation can work.
Yeah, I just didn't know if it's a situation that somebody I'll pay you to do it. Oh, okay. And then all of a sudden I guess I'm the first person ever to have done this.
Yeah.
I didn't know if it was something that you were oh yeah, I know that exists. I know people make money off of...
I'd heard about it in big cities before, but it wasn't something that I knew anyone who had done before.
Okay. So that was the thought process. So you worked your way into the first job of...
Right. I was kind of creating your own job, I guess. Talking to people and be hey, I really want to do this for you, and you've seen me do it, and I'm really good at it. But I can't... it would literally be all of my free time if I just did it for everyone. Because they wanted me to. But
I mean, that's how everybody's gotten like jobs that they love, and people. That's they start off working for free, or they just start doing it and not ask what the pay is, and then all of a sudden, it's a situation that you've proven your worth. Look, if you want me to do this any longer, it's kind of got.
There's got to be some compensation, or it just I have to be able to live.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, when you started that, were you actively seeking out other people that wanted to play games? Or does it become you have a business card now that you pass around?
No.
How does that happen?
I mean, once I started, it is such a time-intensive thing that's tough to do, but it's mostly word of mouth. And because it's a weird thing, because you're going to be with these people in such a personal setting for so long that no one's, I think, is going to, and I could be wrong, want you to do it unless they've heard some about you. Mm-hmm. It's not like a job. I guess a lawyer can be well, I'm doing my lawyer thing. So you
can't really go on a grind. You know what I'm saying? I'm just gonna come in. I'm gonna do this.
Yeah, exactly. No, you gotta be on.
It has to be on, and there's a personality to it. They have to having you around, and also too if you're a dick, and you're the guy who's the judge.
Yeah,
you don't want to have that person around.
No, not at all. Generally. It's got to be somebody that knows you or has heard that you're really good at that. Mm-hmm. Nobody's just going to want you off the street or off the internet because if it was something that people were just looking for that much, there'd be tons of people that want to do it. But it's just not. Generally, it's got to be people that just really like what you do and have faith in what you do.
Like, I like the pace of his game. I like the stories he comes up with. I love the predicaments he puts us in.
Those are all the important things that they would want, because they could pay anyone to just run the game, but they have to like those things about how you do it. And I think for them to have knowledge of that ahead of time, there's got to be some kind of interpersonal thing there that it can't just be, here's my card.
Yeah, and absolutely, and you're dealing with people's personalities, because people take this game very seriously, and people take all games very seriously, in a sense that when you were coming up with some of these stories and writing the dialogue of what they're going to do, did you have to almost like tailor make it to the players, or was there a thought process of, I need to come up with challenges and experiences and stories that are easy to achieve so they feel like a certain sense of achievement? Or I need to write some stories that have a little bit more challenge to that might not be even possible to be done properly.
Right. Usually I would send out an email to the group, or if there was a head of the group, I would just send it to him and be like, hey, what kind of stuff do you guys like? What are you interested in? How much challenge do you enjoy? How much of these different kinds of the game do you enjoy? Mystery, or do you enjoy do you enjoy more fighting scenarios, or do you enjoy more political stuff? And I would send it out and be like, hey, just let me know, like, how do you feel about these different things, and what kind of setting do you like, and let me know. And then I would tailor that to whatever they wanted. Because again, they're the people hiring you, and I can write whatever, and I can run whatever. So
yeah, and see that's a handy skill. And we were just talking off camera as well that you were part of a comedy sketch group in the Greensboro area.
Yep. Yeah.
And like I said, like, it's just seeing like this world of, like, it just makes sense why a lot of my favorite comedians and guys that write on television shows, they talk about Dungeons and Dragons so much, because it just seems like there's so much fun, and like, you know, you can have such creativity in what you write and stuff like that. Like, what were your favorite stories to write? And were there any like stories where you're like, ooh, like, I've wanted to do a sketch about this, but this wouldn't fit anywhere else, and nobody would get it other than this group of people. We've definitely had sketches that were like that, where only the dungeon people would get it. And then we had to usually cut all that stuff out to make it, end up being so the public could get it. But I don't think so. I guess it's generally like it feels like a different thought process when it goes into it. I'm kind of like getting more into what would these people enjoy? So it never, I don't know, doesn't end up being about me. You never bring anything personally to it, because you mostly feel like you're writing to service.
I guess so. Yeah, I'm writing to service something, so it's not really like my voice comes out in the characters and my, I guess, interpretation of whatever I'm trying to write, not necessarily specific things that I need to talk about or need to do or anything.
Yeah, because so like, but like sometimes like, when I write stuff, like, I put little hidden jokes in it that only I get. Just because when you're writing, it's so, I'm in front of my computer, and it's just like, I have to I have to entertain myself something.
Right.
And sometimes when you put that little joke in, that you're like, oh, I'm going to keep hanging my hat on this. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, well, I usually get to, like, you have to put in a character. Like, when they're like, you're writing up the characters, so it's not as much, I guess, in the writing as the characters. And so you're thinking, okay, well, there's this barkeep, and you could write down like a list of traits, like, well, he's curmudgeonly, and I don't know, he's got a limp because he was in a war, blah 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 blah. Or you could say, well, he's Kramer from Seinfeld, and so just write that, and then you just play him like Kramer, and usually people won't even notice. They'll just think he's like a random NPC, unless you're doing it like too hard. But you can just be like. And that could be like a little hidden joke, like the little thing where you're like, okay, well, when we get to that point, I'm going to get to play Kramer. And, I'm not going to play it perfectly, but I'll play like a character who's Kramer-esque.
Yeah, he's going to say this line in this predicament from this episode.
Yeah. And I'm just going to like kind of insert that in, and no one will notice, and I'll just laugh about it.
Exactly, because sometimes you need that, like especially like writing, because it's such a just long and arduous thing that sometimes when you just put that little joke in,
it just like helps you get through it. It helps you like get excited again.
Exactly, it gets you excited again. It gets you those next paragraphs because you're like, oh, this is gonna be so good, and then this joke here, like, and then you can just kind of like you're now almost invested in the story as well.
Yep.
So, as far as like Like, how popular did you get? Was the situation like, guys, I don't have enough time to do this?
No. It was like 2 or 3 rotating groups throughout like a 2.5 year period. Mm-hmm. So it was just enough to some were doing like every week, and then some were doing every other week. Mm-hmm. But I guess once I had that, like, I wasn't really looking for a lot more than that, and so I like, because you almost can't, like,
you weren't building website like Dungeon Master, like
no, I wasn't
extraordinaire, you know.
Yeah, I wasn't trying to make it like huge or anything, because it's such a personal thing that it's the only way to make it huge would be to make it like a pyramid scheme. Not a scheme, but it would, to make it like, well, I train people that then go run things, and there's like a trickle up economy situation going on, because there's only so much time.
They'd be booking, you'd be like their agent, like, hey, I'm gonna send you this guy, I'm gonna send you this guy, I'll take a booking fee from him. Like, you charge 150, but I'm scooping 50 from this guy,
right? He's got my seal of approval, so you know that he's gonna run it like I would run it, but I don't have time, so I'm not there.
If you had a Dungeon Master pyramid scheme like that, what would be the name of it?
Oh my god. Something better than anything I could possibly come up with. I don't know. I'd probably just have my friend AJ write it, or write a name for it. What would be a good name? I'm so bad at coming up with stuff like that. Nope, I got nothing.
Nothing. Okay.
Nothing.
I guess I'm big on names, but I don't know enough finite things about the game, so like we're on opposite ends. Gotcha. So I can't help you any more than just something about a bow and arrow.
Magic names for stuff is always easy, because it's called Magic the Gathering. Mm-hmm. So you just do Magic the something inning for like whatever you're doing. Yeah,
exactly. And anytime when you have like the gathering, you can make the reunion inning,
you like
the
tons of silly
names.
You
know what I'm saying? Like all kinds of stuff.
Magic podcasts are like the amateuring or the professional-ing. Like they just throw stuff on there.
Just put the ing at the end. Well, since you brought up the Magic thing,
mm-hmm.
Magic the Gathering, like, how long has that game been around? Because I haven't heard about the popularity of that.
23 years.
23 years.
Yep.
Okay. Well,
started in 1993.
Okay. It still seems like a new thing to me, but when you say 23 years, that would be technically new because I'm old. So
okay. All right.
Yeah. Because I'm like, man, that came up about in my teens. I'm like, yeah, 23.
Yep,
that's about what had happened. That's about what had happened. Like, it's interesting when you have like games like that just pop up and they exist.
They kind of like pop up once and then they like explode.
Yeah, and it seems like there's a lot more failures than there probably are successes in that.
Oh, you mean like different games, like taking shots?
Yes.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Like what were some games that come to mind? Did you experience it? Some other games that
there's tons of them. There's a game called Wyvern or Wyvern.
Okay. That
I didn't play too much, but it was another one that that came out for a while and then failed. There was Vampire: The Eternal Struggle and Rage the something, I'm sure. Uh-huh. Then there's like a Lord of the Rings version and a bunch of different. The Hobbit, when the Hobbit movie came out, people love to like make a card game last for a little while. There's a Dragon Ball Z card game. Mm-hmm. It usually lasts for a couple of years and doesn't do much. Oh, Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh! They were kind of like cartoon video game card game. Mm-hmm. That they like mass marketed all at once. Mm-hmm. But they usually come and maybe stay for a year or two and then kind of disappear. Okay. Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh! Stayed around for a long time. They're still pretty popular.
Yeah, and the thing is, it seems very big to. You need the community, obviously, that's supportive. If not enough people are playing it, you can't support.
Right.
The game itself.
You need to be able to hire people to actually make it and then print it and have lots of people buy it.
It's not like a CEO canceling a favorite TV show. I'm like, I didn't get the ratings, but actually it had tons of viewers on Hulu and Netflix and everything else, so why would you cancel something like that?
Exactly.
So obviously if there's not enough people playing it, it doesn't exist anymore. What do you think is a trait in a game that causes it to disappear?
Usually, there's this concept in game design called power creep. Mm-hmm. Which is make my first game and let's say at the base all the creatures do 2 damage. Mm-hmm. Well, in order to get you excited about buying the next set, it's very easy to just make all the creatures do 3 damage, and then be like, oh well, these new cards just are better. Mm-hmm. And then that seems okay for the first set and the second set, but 5 years down the road, it's okay. Well, all these creatures just do 10 damage. and it's actually more multiplicative because you have to make it like that much better. So 5 years down the road, it's like, well, they all do 100 damage, and it's amazing. And so it's really easy for the game to die when people start seeing it get kind of ridiculous over the course of things just getting more and more powerful.
The older stuff that they have is now obsolete, so it just seems like I just need to shell out more money.
Yeah, just shell out more money.
They're just causing me to pay more. And
exactly.
There's nothing really that's changed with the game. It's just the numbers have just moved on a sliding scale.
Yeah, the numbers just move up, and then I have to pay them money to get to use those new better numbers. So that's how I think how card games specifically die. Is that's the easiest way. I'm sure there's lots of ways they do.
I'm sure they do, but what makes them successful? Like, obviously, Magic's been around for 20 plus years. What's its key to probably its success?
So it's got a couple. One is it's just like a really great system. Most card games are sort of based on it in one way or another. The other couple of things they did are rotations. So it's a fix to the power creep problem, where after the third year the game is out, let's say, the cards from that first year can't be used anymore.
Okay.
So you don't need to keep ratcheting up the power because it just kind of resets itself every 2 years. And so as long as you're within that 2 years balancing around that, then there's not a huge problem. They have a bunch of different formats, which are like types of games you can play. And there's the 2-year one, and then there's like an 8-year one, and then you can use the cards from whenever. And so there's if you like playing with the cards from year one, you still can, and if you don't have to. And so the different levels of financial investment are very different, and that helps let a lot more people get involved in it.
Okay, so it's almost like recognizing. Like a reboot, recognizing other reboots and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Maybe like Pierce Brosnan recognizing that Roger Moore was previously James Bond.
All these James Bonds are here, and that's fine.
Yeah, it's
people still like
they're
James
all
Bond.
in the same movie. Like all of a sudden, Daniel Craig's getting attacked by Sean Connery, and like Timothy Dalton, and like yes, we recognize that this was a past. Like the Superman, the Star Trek movies.
Exactly.
We recognize that this was an alternate reality, but we're going down a different path.
Yep.
So. Yeah, and when you're talking about the revolving years, are like people like people take it very seriously? Are they like, oh man, the cards I have right now are going to be obsolete? I need to is that like a big concern of people? They're like, oh, all the cards I have are going to be obsolete here in a couple of years. I gotta buy all new stuff.
Yeah, no, people get really stressed out about that. Some people like only playing the older formats because they don't have to buy anything new. But the older formats, it's a much bigger initial investment, unless you were playing then. So if you wanted to play like the 2-year cycle deck, it's going to run you about $300. But if you want to play the forever anytime period deck, that's going to run you about, I don't know, like $25,000. So if you played in 1993 and you have all those cards, there's no more investment. You get to be like, well, I don't need the new cards because I got the best cards from long ago. So I don't need to invest anything. But if you're playing the 2-year rotating cycle, then people who don't have, it's not super expensive hobby, but I would say more expensive than a lot of things, especially for kids that are playing it. They get stressed about, well, now I need to buy all new cards every year.
Okay, so it's the opposite sides of it. Like if you're playing one version, the older cards are more valuable. If you're playing the newer version, so that makes a lot of sense. I definitely solves that problem.
Right.
Because you got two different aspects.
Yeah, two different aspects, two different types of person that are playing.
Yeah, because it seems like if it was just the one way where like each year and you got to buy the newer cards, it's basically like the opposite of baseball cards.
Yeah.
Where like the longer you have cards, the less valuable they are.
They just go down and down and down. But instead, what happens is the older cards just go up and up and up, and the newer cards stay at a flat rate but keep changing. So you can either pay like basically a flat rate every year, or invest in one of the older ones. Okay. Like I definitely knew a single adult man who started playing and was like, "Oh well, that old format sounds cool. I never have to buy new cards. I can just drop $25K and be done. All right, here you go." It was like, I just play Magic all the time now.
Okay.
But he quickly realized there's no one to play with that like does that. Usually like no one around here. Maybe one or two people have those type of old decks, and then they have like a convention once or twice a year where they meet up all the people that have decks like that play.
Yeah, because it's obviously evolved over the years and people came in at different times.
Yeah.
So, like, you're not going to play the guy that's got the long ago set because they're going to get crushed every time.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. So, like, you talk about it being, like, an expensive hobby, but like I said, we're coming back to, like, me with baseball cards.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you have, like, some of the older sets, like, are you preserving? Because I've seen, like, the cards and people are, like, put them in, the hard plastic sleeves. Like,
Yeah.
Is it important to keep these cards in good condition, or people just
definitely.
just, you know?
Yeah, no, I have an online business where I buy and sell cards, and they all have to be in good condition because it's through an online retailer, and if the person gets my card and it's not in good condition, they can just be like, no, full refund. So, and if you're trying to protect your investment at all, it's just important that they stay in good condition.
Okay, so it's more important that you keep them in good condition so you can keep playing with them. I'm guessing is the assumption.
Oh, well, the problem is like you buy them in packs, right? Mm-hmm. And so let's say this deck I'm playing needs, it's only 60 cards. Mm-hmm. But when I'm buying packs, I'm getting tons of cards I don't need. And so it's just important that those cards stay in really good condition off to the side. The ones you're playing with, you try to keep them as good as possible, but you're shuffling them like a deck of cards. They're getting wrecked. Mm-hmm. But there's they're in plastic sleeves, and then there's plastic sleeves for those sleeves that you can get, and then you're playing on a play mat that protects them from the table and tries to be as protective as possible. You're trying to keep them in as good condition as possible, but you're shuffling the shit out of them.
Yeah, has anybody got the old the hard plastic big square where you screw them in? Like, nobody's playing with cards like that.
You can't play with those because you gotta.
Okay,
you have to be able to you have to be able to shuffle them in a reasonable amount of time. I've definitely seen people play with those because somebody brought there was an old deck about 5 years ago that used 200 cards instead of 60. Mm-hmm. And there was the only way to shuffle it quickly was to use the big cases because you would parse it out to people and be like, all right, everybody shuffle these cases together. Okay. But it's almost never. Okay.
I was going to say, because I could just imagine playing because I think about the thing that is protecting my Ken Griffey Jr. rookie card. Right. That type of case. Yeah. If you have a certain card that you're trying to protect.
Usually those kind of cards you're just not going to play with. Okay. You're gonna put them in that case, and you're gonna keep them like a baseball card. Okay, and you keep them like that because they're worth bananas amount of money.
Of course. Yeah. And you can kind of maybe play with the Frank Thomas protector, right? But definitely not the Ken Griffey Jr. protector.
Yeah. Once it gets graded, you just sit it off to the side, and you're done with it.
Okay. All right. Very cool. Now, the discussion of you being a professional Magic the Gathering player.
I don't know if I want to use that word.
Well, on your way was right. I believe,
yeah.
Let me say you were on your way to professional Magic the Gathering player. I don't want to pump. Trust me, if people say even though I do professional wrestling, people say, "Oh, you're a professional wrestler," I feel uncomfortable with it.
Yeah,
because
exactly.
It's not my main source of income.
Yes, you get paid to wrestle.
Yes.
But you would feel...
It is not my main source of income. Yeah. It is a very good part-time job that destroys my body. But so would construction, I guess, to an extent.
Yeah.
So, as somebody who does it at a professional level.
Right, yeah. I guess I'm playing... I often play people who do make their living at it.
Okay. So, I wrestle people that make their living at it as well.
Yeah.
On a regular basis and have, of course, some time. I don't know if you want to get into specific details or money. I don't know how you feel about that. Uh-huh. But how is it possible to make money on this game where you're playing with cards? That's a big leap. I can't.
Gotcha. Okay. The setup for it is set up like the World Series of Poker.
Okay.
Where you're going to a tournament with 3,000 people, and the top 50 people get paid cash. Okay. After 2 days of playing, it breaks down to basically top 100 at the beginning of day 2, and then at the end of day 2 goes to top 8, and then so basically you're playing to get into the top 8. Once you get in the top 8, every game is worth $5,000. Okay. So it's a little like the World Series of Poker system, and then those get you to winning. Those get you to more events where the
they want to bring you in. I'm sure as you win more tournaments, we want to bring this guy in for their tournament.
Right. We want to bring him in for tournaments. We want to get him on camera.
Coming in.
Yeah. Yeah, once you're that level, they start giving you appearance fees to be at tournaments and that kind of thing.
So you've got a guaranteed money, you know.
Yeah.
And then of course you just got to fin.
And that's kind of the way they survive is like you need that level where you're guaranteed money to call it, I think, professional. Because before that, you're taking just giant risks for possible reward.
Exactly. Like
Yeah.
you could get knocked out early and you made nothing on the
Made
trip.
nothing. Yeah. It was like a full trip. You did nothing.
So you're at that level, like you're fighting and trying to get in that top 8 every time.
Right. Exactly.
And then sometimes you get lucky, and obviously you get in there.
Right. It's definitely more skill than luck by a large amount. I wouldn't want to downplay the amount of skill that's needed, because the people who are those professionals, they hit that top 8 out of 3,000 people over and over and over again.
Much like the World Series of Poker.
Exactly.
They've calculated the risks. They know how people are going to play.
Yep.
They understand how human psychology of what they're going
What their
through.
opponent's going to do, what they're doing, preparation.
They've seen different scenarios of how things have played out and how people have handled it. All different types of people have handled it.
Exactly. So I'm not downplaying at all those people's skill or my own skill for trying to get to their level. But there is a luck base. So you can definitely show up and just completely whiff.
So yeah, okay. So when you play, like, would you say you're a person that's like, you know, reading the table? Like, are you very good at that? Is like adjusting? Like,
I think I'm good at kind of like
what's your strong suit? What do you think the thing that makes you good at it as opposed to most other people?
You're just asking me to like insult other people.
No, not. Let me rephrase that, because when I said it, I realized, that's not probably the problem.
The thing is, other people are stupid, and I'm smarter.
Well, no, and then that's not where I was going, but it's definitely the way it came out. I'm not gonna lie. What do you think that is your key to success?
I think definitely studying. I was always more of a, I guess, getting information from books and being able to kind of spit it out kind of thing. So with the advent of the internet and things like podcasts, there's a lot of great information out there. And so I think what I've been able to get a lot better, quicker, by just intaking as much information, listening to professional people talk about their experiences, and kind of cheating my way there. Right, so like being able to be like, well, I didn't have those experiences, but I can remember so-and-so talked about their experience there, and maybe I can use that for me.
That's exactly what I've done with professional wrestling. Is I work for an online wrestling merchandise company, and like what we're doing right here, we're filming with a camera and talking and stuff like that. I've done that with multiple professional wrestlers for the last 10 years, and it's weird. I've been locked in the room with these intelligent minds of professional wrestling, and you know, we've had them accessible to ask whatever question we want about business and like, how did this happen when you wrestle this guy, and the things, and how you build in this situation. How did you draw a big house because of this? How did you wrestle this guy? What were the thought process when you came into this? And it's weird how people will listen to, like, you know, shoot interviews or podcasts, and all they want to hear about is who had sex with who, what road stories we get drunk.
Yeah.
But at the same time too, like, you have these people who have an extensive amount of knowledge. They can say that knowledge, but then taking that information, putting it in your brain, and then translating it to what you do is a very rare gift that I don't think a lot of people have. Because like, I listen to Nerdist podcasts, I listen to Mark Maron's podcast,
of course,
and especially like comedians, and especially as now that I do stand up, I take a lot of that information. I'm like, okay, when I think about this and then relate this, you have to be relatable. It's because, you know.
Right. These are the reasons you want to do that kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. Like, this is why you want to be doing this, and this is why you want to say this at a certain time. And then you translate it into your performances and your actions and stuff like that. I don't think a lot of people do that. Do you feel the same way?
Yeah, I think it is a lot more people, when they listen to stuff, want to just hear, you know, the greatest hits.
Yeah,
and not a lot of people want to digest the like kind of I don't know, more important bits of information, things that can make them better versus entertainment, I guess.
Yeah, because I like, so you get those little nuggets and like little podcasts that like you hold on to.
Right.
You know, like Chris Rock podcast on Mark Maron. He talked about he goes, he hates the comedians are like, oh, let's all go to the club together and do this. Like, no, you should be going to the club by yourself, alone. You should be alone with your thoughts.
Right.
And when you go on stage at like an open mic or you're testing the material, you just want to say it. You don't put on quite an act because you want to see if it has validity to it.
Right, because the act only adds stuff, and you want to see, is it good enough down here?
Exactly.
Yeah. Plus, going with your friends, you have assholes just laughing in the audience because it's you. Mm-hmm. And you won't get a full vibe for the crowd.
Absolutely, but just even in magic, you hear a piece of information, you can apply it, and I feel like those are the tools that I think are not being used a lot, just in society. There's so many things that people. There's so much knowledge out there. Like the fact that this iPhone exists boggles me.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Infinite information.
It's just okay, I need to Google this, and then I'll read an article about. Just what perestroika was about. You know what I'm saying? I've heard that word and I think it's funny, but let's find out what that was about.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's okay, Franz Ferdinand, let's look not the band, but let's hear the story of the band.
What's that guy doing?
Yeah. So exactly. So it's just those things when somebody says the name and that fast of knowledge and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think that's an important skill. I think for I think our society going forward will be just getting content as quickly as possible and digesting it and using it versus just taking it in and just not having it, not being able to make it your own or use it for useful things.
Absolutely. Communication and education.
Yep.
Absolutely the key.
Yep.
And
exactly.
Even in just playing Magic the Gathering, it's just as important.
Yeah.
So, and obviously, you do make a little bit of money. What are some other things that you do as far as to support your Magic the Gathering endeavors and other endeavors? What are some other things that you work on?
Okay. Well, I sell cards. Mm-hmm. And so that's running the online store, and you kind of buy cards from people really cheap. Mm-hmm. And they get cash, so they're usually happy immediately. And then you have to sell them and mail them out and do a lot of that, and that takes time. So that's cool. My wife and I also make a game design company. Okay. So we're designing a Dungeons and Dragons-like game.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah.
Well, that's got to be fun. You spend time together. You get the dual computers in here.
I mean, it's definitely a lot of fun sometimes, but we're both very, I guess, set in our mind, we're right type of people. So when we have a disagreement, it's huge, and it's weird because it's not like a disagreement I didn't take out the trash, right? Because eventually you're all right, I didn't take out the trash, you're right.
It's not something you feel passionate about.
Instead, I just think you're wrong.
Yeah.
I think everything you're saying is wrong, and we will never see eye to eye on that. And it's a definitely real struggle to get through that.
Yeah, but you have to look at it on the other side of it is that you would obviously still be doing that. Now, if you were with somebody that was not interested in doing that, you would need time away from that person.
Yes.
So you're actually spending time with the person that you do love, and you're with them.
Incredibly lucky. I definitely wouldn't change it for anything.
Because if they weren't interested, they're obviously in another room doing whatever.
They're just in another room doing something else.
And then that's X amount of hours you're not with each other.
Yep. Exactly. And so we get to spend time together when it's clicking on all cylinders. We're both doing great, creating this thing we love. And when we're having a big fight, it's damn it. All right, now we need the night off from each other.
Worst thing in the world.
Yeah, it's the worst possible thing. We're storming out. And
you can't really run away from anybody. This is very similar to my house. You can't, I keep telling my girlfriend, I wish I got the split level, so that way I have another level to go to.
We moved from a split level, and that was awesome. We would have a big fight and then just separate.
You can go in the basement, you can be upstairs.
Yep.
It's as simple as that. It's taken care of.
But when we moved here, it's been rougher having just nowhere to go when we're having that kind of fight. But the initial game is winding down with our design process. Mm-hmm. So we're about to go ahead and finish it up, and so that's all really exciting.
I bet.
Except the couple key pieces are things that we completely disagree on, and so we're struggling to be all right, well let's meet halfway on one of these. Can we I'll give up on this and you give up on that, and we'll make it work.
There you go. You're just going to have to meet in the middle somehow, and hopefully you've made the compromises that will best...
Yes. Yeah. Hopefully the compromises we made just end up being great.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. But anyways, we're getting pretty close to the end here, and I don't want to... And I definitely want to leave enough time to talk about what I always talk about on this podcast, and the main point, and just the what the overall thing that I'm trying to do with this.
Right.
Is as I want to talk to people of varying degrees of success in all different walks in life and stuff like that. You're developing, a game. You're also playing Magic the Gathering, and everything else that you do. Now, when I say the word success,
yeah,
what does that mean? How do you view yourself as like, oh, when I achieve this, now I'm successful? And is it attached to a dollar sign? Is it attached to the fact that I'm creating something that people like? Does this game come out and it's like, oh, I'm only worried about the amount of money we make off it, or are you worried about how many people are playing it, or like when you think of success, what pops in your head?
Okay. I think success is for me has always been getting to live my life how I want to, kind of be happy doing the things I want to do, and not at any point be struggling. Mm-hmm. So not be like wondering where food's going to come from, or wondering how we'll pay rent, and doing that while still being able to kind of be happy. And I'm totally cool with that being success for me. Mm-hmm. Like if Ann and I get to live out our life at about this same like income level, just staying in we're cool with a small house, and we're cool with paying our bills, and just both getting to do what we love. That's pretty much success for me.
Are you close to that level, you would say? Or does it seem like it's a little further away? It's
some days it seems like we're like right there, and then some days it's like, oh my God, it's like forever away. It's usually based on like when we get those surprise bills in life, when it's like, oh, that's right, I do have this student loan, so I don't get my tax refund this year. That's right, kick in the ass. And that's when it's like, oh God, we're so far away from that, because there's just student loans are awful. Oh, yeah. But then sometimes when we're 3 months in a row where we both did our little projects and made some money and are doing well, we're like, oh, this actually feels really good. Maybe we're almost there. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I guess come and go. And then I'm also Italian, so in the back of my mind, real success only means my parents brag about me.
Is that an Italian thing? I don't think I've spoken with enough Italians that they see it that way.
Like, I guess they may not phrase it like that, but like if your mom's at like a group of family members, you want her to be like able to go toe to toe with the other family members about her kid.
That's something that you're concerned about?
Yes, definitely. That is
really?
something definitely subconsciously, and I consciously on several occasions.
Okay, because I'm rebellious. I'd rather them go the other way. Like, we don't know what's wrong with Jake.
Okay, gotcha.
I'm just rebellious. I was like, I'd rather them just think I'm an awful failure and I'm happy. You know what I'm saying? Like,
no, oh man, that's
why I probably
totally reverse.
Yeah, completely. I'm like, I wish they feel almost kind of ashamed, like just a little bit.
God, maybe it's less an Italian thing, more of a personality type thing. I don't know. But like, we definitely have one of my cousins is her longtime boyfriend is kind of in the family. Just became a professional hockey player.
Oh, okay.
So he got picked up by, I think, the Red Wings, but I could be wrong, and I'm sorry if I'm saying it wrong. But like, so it's definitely on my mind pretty often, thinking about my family in Connecticut, whether my mom gets to like be proud of me and talk like about things I'm doing, or be like, oh well, I can't say anything. Professional hockey player.
Can't talk about it. He's playing Magic the Gathering. Yeah. And he's making X amount of dollars. This guy plays for the Red Wings.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, part of that might be that like my mom and dad have supported me through everything. Mm-hmm. So like they were happy with when I was acting, and they were happy when I was being a dungeon master, and they're happy when I'm playing World of Warcraft. So I guess I always felt comfortable and just wanted them to brag about me or feel comfortable bragging about me. So,
well, you talked about the acting, but let's do a little touchstone of this. Like, okay. Obviously, you went to New York, I'm guessing, to probably chase that dream down.
Yes, yeah.
Is that something you still pursue, or is it something that you've just been like, well, it was what it was?
Kind of fell to the wayside, and that's probably mostly, if I was to think about it, because I gained weight and I don't feel comfortable on camera anymore. Hey, camera. No.
It's shooting you from the side.
Right.
So now you're fine.
And mostly, I haven't even looked. But yeah, so I I feel less comfortable on stage and on camera the heavier I am. But I did it in New York, and then when I came down here, I still did it a little bit. And then when I was doing comedy stuff, it was only sketch comedy, so it's acting-esque.
Yeah, well, you'd be the perfect body type if you're a little bit chunkier.
Right,
Yeah, for comedy, trust me.
You get a little better when you're chunkier.
Trying to tell jokes when you have like vascular veins in your arms is not usually doesn't work out all that well. You have to do a lot of disarming before you ever get to the funny.
Yeah, I definitely didn't feel like I was funny until I gained more weight.
Yeah.
But New York was just kind of it for acting. It just straight up kicks you in the nuts.
Well, that's why I wanted to bring it up.
Yeah,
because I like bringing up.
Sure. Yeah.
But we talked about success, but we're talking. But I also wanted like how you deal with like those failures, for a better word. Like like I didn't achieve this. Like how do you handle them?
I think it went in waves. I'm gonna say like sometimes I handle it okay by dealing with it and getting. I think I've had a lot of experience through my life about like through my imagination and doing dungeon mastering stuff and fantasy stuff to kind of like have a good escape to kind of deal with it through escapism. But of course, I also dealt with it through heavy drinking and overeating. You know, I think the normal kind of person dealing with stuff bullshit.
Okay.
But yeah, like cattle calls were like 500 people show up for like one role, and it was definitely the first like big cattle call I went up to was for West Side Story, where in college I had been the lead in it, and I was like, I got this.
Yeah.
And then you show up and it's like, no, dude, everyone is more attractive than you.
Everybody
better trained than you. Everyone here was the lead. Get the fuck over yourself. And yeah, I think I was able to get over myself. Like I definitely went from like super conceited and like full of myself to not at all. But I wasn't able to do that while still, I guess, doing the trying to act thing. Like it seemed like everyone around me was blind to, oh, someone else might be better than me. Like they were somehow able to go in with.
It seems like those are the people who are successful. Just the lunacy you have to have.
Yeah, it's like this level of maybe lunacy is the right word. Like complete blindness to anyone else possibly being good.
Those usually seem to be the successes, and that's why they always talk about, when you're successful, it's and always fun because this person is like this and it's like that's because they're crazy.
They're crazy, exactly.
if a normal person like me was successful, I would handle it differently. So don't tell me that money and success it doesn't bode well. It bodes well for normal people.
And then normal people, like I would go in a room of all these like more attractive, more better prepared, better dancer people and be like, "Fuck, I'm done." And I think they go in, the people that succeed at that go in and go, I got this. Better than everybody.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, you're crazy. But if you're able to keep doing it over and over and over again because of that lunacy, then eventually you think you're good.
Yeah, I guess that's how it works.
I think that's how it works. I don't know.
Like entertainment is just weird like that.
It's a super weird industry.
Yes, for sure. So do you, after knowing that in the back of your mind, like, do you come into like a Magic the Gathering tournament going, I got this with the same lunacy, or do you...
can't do it. I'm too I don't know, skeptical of myself.
Too realistic.
Yeah, I have a friend who does.
That's why you talk about like you're more worried about your skill than you are your luck.
Yeah,
a little bit too. That's why you focus.
I'm trying to just be like completely realistic about the situation and look at what I can improve instead of like, oh, I got screwed by luck or I'm just better than them. But I have a friend who does really well who goes into it being like, I'm better than them. And when I play other people, he's like, you're just better than them. I'm like, okay, well, I'm not. But that gets him to succeed. Like somehow that, like, I don't know. There's something about that, about just thinking you're literally better than everyone that helps out at some point.
I guess.
Yeah, I can't do it.
I know. I have a hard time too. Like
Yeah.
I have people that come up to me at the table at a wrestling show. I'm like, oh, I really like you, and then I talk them out of being a fan of mine.
Yeah,
and then
they
usually leave not being my fan anymore. So like, if you're a fan of mine, don't come meet me. I'll talk you out of it.
Yeah. I'll tell you about this other guy who's probably great.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I'll show you some of my flaws. Would you like to see flaws?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I mean, I think success-wise, the better way is to be a blind idiot who thinks you're the greatest piece of shit. But I can't do that. And I think there are many people who have succeeded who also can't do that.
Exactly. So, well, anyways, John, is there anything that you need to plug, promote, let people know about, get out there, any projects or anything of sort that you have a live microphone to push out into the world, whatever you want?
Yeah, man. Whenever I listen to a podcast, they do that at the end, and the person is always like, "Durr."
Yeah.
And so I was like, I'm going to be prepared for this.
Okay.
And now I'm not.
No.
But you can check out my game at heroesjourneyrpg.com.
Okay.
That's our website. You can check out me on Twitter at Lambach. That's LAMBACH. And I think that's all the stuff I'm doing. If you want to check out videos that I'm sometimes in, you can check out Unstoppable Failure on YouTube. That's the sketch group that we do videos with.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, John, thank you very much for welcoming me.
Dude, thanks for having me.
This is a blast.
Cool.
So
I like our little setup. This looks like if I could do this setup, right, and just this would be a good place to like do lots of stuff.
You could do whatever you want on
right,
this
like throw a camera up and.
Well, you have the TV here. You could have put like some fancy graphic on the background, and that would have been your background.
Oh yeah, exactly.
And
that sounds great.
Done deal.
Yep. Cool. Well, thank you so much for having me, and it was a blast.
Yes, yeah. You're welcome to be in your home.